One of China's most important economic, social, and cultural treasures is in major trouble. The Yangtze River is suffering. Long regarded as a major source of life in China, it has played a defining role in Chinese history. Over time, it's been used for transport, provided fish and freshwater, been used to irrigate crops, and more recently to produce electricity. Long River is the English translation of its Chinese name, an apt choice considering the Yangtze is over 6,000 kilometers long, making it Asia's longest river and the third longest waterway in the world. It is also home to some of the highest levels of biodiversity on the planet, but decades of use for farming and industry has hurt the river. Pollution, harmful sewage, and other waste have damaged water quality, threatening the main drinking water supply for large cities, including the capital Beijing. Originating from tributaries among the towering mountains of the Tibetan Plateau, the Yangtze makes an epic journey through dense forests, deep valleys, and spectacular gorges as it passes through the heartlands of central China before reaching an estuary in the East China Sea near Shanghai. The immense river basin covers over 1.8 million square kilometers, just over 18% of the country's total landmass. It's home to more than 550 million people, over 40% of China's total population. The basin has both rural areas and around 175 significant cities dotted along the river's path. It is linked to 40% of China's freshwater resources, more than 70% of the country's rice production, 50% of its grain, and more than 70% of fishery production. Economic activity is split between agricultural production in rural areas, while inland cities like Wuhan and the coastal area around Shanghai are some of the most important centers of industry in the entire country. Thanks to extensive operations from many multinational corporations, it's also seen as a major part of the global supply chain. Some estimates say that economic activity along the river in its entirety is worth over 40%, possibly as much as half of national GDP. And if the basin was its own country, it would amount to the third largest economy in the world, with some experts claiming its economic area is worth $5.3 trillion US. But according to China Water Risk, a Hong Kong-based non-profit organization, in 2016, the Yangtze River accounted for 43% of China's total wastewater discharge and 60% of its heavy metal discharge. Not only is this directly harmful to humans, but it can also lead to contaminated soil that affects food safety. In 2015, those concerns led to China's President Xi Jinping to halt all large developments on the river, saying that future works can only proceed if balanced with environmental conservation. Since then, hundreds of factories have had to move or are making plans to shift elsewhere. In 2019, 6 provinces reliant on the river still failed to meet pollution targets. But no conversation about the Yangtze is complete until you talk about one of the most famous pieces of engineering of the early 21st century, China's Three Gorges Dam. Fully completed in 2012, the dam in China's central Hubei province straddles a 2-kilometer wide part of the river. It's one of 600 hydroelectric dams and over 20,000 small hydro installations along the Yangtze. One of the largest dams in the world, Three Gorges has the potential to generate 22,500 megawatts of hydroelectric power. But the dam is mired in controversy. Critics initially argued that the dam's construction contributed to land degradation, and that water from the reservoir was increasing pressure on surrounding land in a region already prone to landslides and earthquakes. It's also been blamed for displacing over 1 million people, destroying scenic beauty, ruining ecosystems such as vital wetlands, driving animals out from their natural habitats, and endangering species. This is very significant, given that the river basin supports around half of all China's wild animals, including the snow leopard and giant panda. Aquatic life has been particularly hard hit. The global conservation body WWF says more than 800 lakes have been lost due to land reclamation, and the more than 200 species of fish in the river have declined as a result of human activity. In 1954, fishermen caught 450,000 tons of fish per year. By 2000, that figure had dropped to 130,000 tons, and today it is reportedly less than 100,000 tons. According to Chinese state media, the area's biological integrity index has reached the lowest no-fish rating. This is why China has banned fishing in some parts of the river for the next 10 years. Xinhua reports that 332 conservation areas in the Yangtze River basin are now affected, and that the ban will be expanded to all natural waterways of the river and its major tributaries from no later than January 1st, 2021. A reported 100,000 fishing boats and 280,000 fishermen will have to cease their activities in the area. The government hopes that time will allow the river to recover, replenish, and restore balance to its ecosystem and increase its biodiversity. But time may not be something the Yangtze has in abundance. Climate change threatens to further exacerbate many of its problems through extreme weather events such as droughts, storms, and floods. It is therefore vitally important that the Yangtze recovers, that pollution is reduced, and that the waterway is protected for future generations. The river could be the single most important resource that China has, and certainly one that China cannot afford to lose.